Hey there lovely people, Jonathan Matt Mendes, Painted Love, and welcome to my channel. For today's project, I was meant to be tackling the wall behind the bathtub in the bathroom with the beautiful paper mural. Now, if you've tuned in expecting to see that, I'm really sorry, it will be next week's tutorial. I decided to put it off because there's a little bit of trim work that I wanted to do around the window frames to make it look like some of the other windows throughout the house, which I'll show you in a moment. What I've done already is the bigger window. You can just see some of the trim work there. I did that off camera so I could get my head around what I was doing, and it's worked fabulously well. So I thought I would show you just how I've covered all of the edges, the reveals, the trim, and the windowsill without damaging what's beneath. There's only one trim that needs to come off. Should I want to take it all off in a couple of years' time, I can just remove it, add the trim back, and it should look good. First up, I'm going to take you to another place in the house so you can get an idea of what I'm trying to achieve on these window apertures, so you can see exactly what the other windows look like in the house and what I want to recreate. So we've got a couple of windows on the landing that I'm going to show you the trim around the window. These are wooden windows, and the idea is to recreate that kind of look. So a wooden trim that sits round over the tile. You can see there's a reveal that goes towards the window. That needs to be painted out as well, so the tiles need covering there. Right the way down, if I come down to the bottom, to the window ledge is also painted, and if I show you close up to the side detail here, there is a little trim that sits underneath, so it beefs it out really lovely, and that is the kind of look that I'm going for across the two windows. These are all original to the house, but hopefully once painted it should all blend in really lovely with the rest of the house. First thing to do is remove this pesky trim. It really was glued on very well, but once it's off, it gives me a nice flat surface to apply a brand new piece of wood for my new windowsill. Now time to make some measurements for my new MDF 5mm board, which will sit over the top of the plastic windowsill. I'm heading back down to my studio to cut the wood ready for installation. Always dry fit your cutout piece of timber before sticking it down in case you need to make extra cuts to make it fit exactly to the surface that you're applying it to. And as you can see, I'm using silicone once again. Now, this is a great gluing medium because it can be removed. It can be all peeled back and it is really strong. It holds down to the surface pretty well. I've also measuring up for a piece of trim now to go round the edges, which I'm cutting on a 45-degree angle on the corner. I will also be using some wood glue to the wooden edge just to make sure that there is a nice connection between the trim work and the MDF, and a few little tacks just to go into the wood surfaces. Make sure that you're very careful not to hit what's underneath so that you don't get any damage to the original sill should you want to remove this at a later date. Okay, so now time for installation of the sides of the aperture of the window. There's a couple of things that I'm going to show you what I've done and my reasoning for that. One of which is the top part of the window reveal. I've used a thicker bit of wood and then added another little shim of wood to that to make sure that I've got the same depth as the other window. You can't see that window just yet, but it comes a little lower, plus the fact, should I want to add a blind to the window, I don't have to drill into the window, and I've got all of that width to drill into to add a roller blind or Venetian blind or Roman, whichever blind that I choose, if I choose to put one in. So that's going to go up at the top. Remember, make sure that your measurements are millimetre perfect. I'm starting with the top section because when the sides go in, they will hold it nice and secure. I've also got a prop for the middle, just to, while this goes off, just to prop it up. So I've measured that as well. So in with the first board, and I'm applying plenty of silicone to the board, making sure to go up to the edges so it gets great adhesion. Nice and even as well. Pop that down there. And then this board can go in centralised. Also, I'm making sure that it's really flush with the edge of the tiles. So pushing up, let's bring my prop, let's put that in the middle. So a length of wood, it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm also going to bring back some of my trim so I can see the levels. So I know it needs to come shuffle out a little bit, and that's pretty well level with the tiles. Obviously there's going to be some silicone behind the trim afterwards. So let's continue with adding the sides, which will also prop each side. So I've made all of my cuts for the trim. The right hand side has had a couple of centimetres ripped off the edge because there's a narrower gap this side. I've dry fitted everything, it's pretty good. The only issue I've got on this one is these tiles at the top slightly bow out, and I'm going to need to add much more sealant to the side panels just to bring the 45-degree angle on a level with each other. Luckily enough, I've got all of this wood at the top that I can nail into to get that really level. The products that I'm using, you'll see me using this quite a lot. This is Titebond Quick and Thick. It's wood glue, and I'll be just putting a bead of wood glue only on the wood around the edges, and I'll also be tacking in little tiny thin nails that will just attach one thing to another, and the sealant will do everything else that it needs to do via sticking to the tiles. So on with adding the trim, and then we can think about adding the beautiful little cornice underneath each window, filling, sanding, priming, ready for paint. So I've moved back to the other window that I completed yesterday. The only thing that I haven't done is put the trim underneath the window ledge. Remember, it has the window ledge and then it tapers in underneath with this beautiful trim. So what I've done here, I couldn't find a profile, anything like, it's an old house, it's difficult to find. I could have them remade, very pricey. So what I've done is I've taken two trims and attached them together. There's like a half round on the top and then a little bit of a wiggle on the bottom. If you look down the camera, you'll be able to see the shape. And I've cut these on a 45-degree angle to the length that I wanted. And then I've made a return. So a little return like this. It looks just like that. So it's a little shim that returns the opposite way, which will fit on the other end once I've applied this. I've added this one already with Quick and Thick. So, onward with applying the final details. This one and that one, I can fill and sand and get some undercoat on, primer, grip adhesive, ready for paint. As you can see outside, it's getting pretty dark now. I've been working since early morning this morning and the results are just staggering. I think it makes such a big difference. It's pushing this tile away, and it was one thing that I wasn't particularly keen on, and now I look at it in a very different way. So once this has got paint on, once it's all filled, sanded, primed and painted, all of a sudden the windows will become something magical in the space. What else to say? Next week, the next week's tutorial, you may see some of the sanding, filling, painting on the trims, but I am making sure that the wall mural is in next week's tutorial so you can see the biggest transformation of the whole room. Last thing to do, bit of sealant, on it goes. Remember, tape it to hold it so it doesn't slip down the wall, and it should go off and be stuck really, really well.